Welcome to Interstage Left. I'm your host, Yvette Monique Clark. This is the spot where we kick it about all things theater, from on stage to backstage and even under the stage. We're talking stories, craft, and the passion that keeps the theater world alive. Let's get into it. Hello, hello, hello.
Hey, girl, hey.
Today we have Andrew Diamond with us. This is my first person that works behind the stage. He's a head electrician and a lighting programmer. This is a world I know nothing about. I just stand there and let people make me look pretty. So let's see what I always do. I started this podcast because I'm always fascinated how people come from different experiences, different backgrounds, and all end up on the same stage, right? So my first question is always, where are you from and how did you get into the business of show?
So I am from Dayton, Ohio, originally. I've been living there, or I've lived there for 18 years. Ended up initially getting into theater because my aunt actually works in the same industry. She does wigs for, used to be theater, now it's for TV and film. But because of that, my mother took me when I was 7 or 8 to come see a couple of Broadway shows. So I saw the original Broadway cast of Thoroughly Modern Millie because that's what my aunt was working on. And then in high school and then in college, I worked in theater and then kept working in theater, and now I've done this professionally for a little over a decade.
Okay. Did you ever want to be on stage, or did you always know you wanted to? Okay.
I started doing lighting and I haven't stopped.
Okay, so go ahead.
The amount of people though that keep telling me that I have the personality to be on stage is always very entertaining.
You do have the personality to be on stage. So I need to know, because this is what I've never swam in. What does a head electrician do? What are you responsible for as a head electrician?
So you are in charge of the general electricians. You're making sure that that the crew is actually functioning well to get everything up on stage. So that's taking the lights and all the pipes, installing LED tape in the sets and things like that, as well as the logistics of making sure that all of those different pieces can talk to the lighting console. As well as sometimes making sure that that can then also talk to the sound console so that the lighting console can be triggered by the sound console or back and forth, as well as also video also integrating with that. So it's kind of a little bit of a catch-all for everything that the lighting department has to possibly do. So it's a lot of making sure that you are not putting too many lights on a single circuit, because I mean, if you've plugged in an air fryer and your microwave into the same outlet and then ran both at the same time, you've absolutely flipped a breaker. And that is basically a lot of my job, is to make sure that that doesn't happen. And then also telling the designer, I was like, hey, you have too many things and I don't have enough power in the building to do that.
Lighting designers sometimes have grand ideas that the theater can't handle.
Thankfully, I generally work with people who have a sense of about what they can do. But yeah, it is definitely a give and take, where it's just like, I can try to make this all happen, but here's the things I think that might have to get cut.
Yeah. So your influence in your family was what pulled you into theater and doing lighting and that type of thing. Did you have any other mentors along the way that helped you, grow and learn and get more skillful in your profession?
Yeah, yes, and kind of. So I mean, the way that I ended up actually stumbling into doing lighting, to answer a different question first, is that I always found it really uh fascinating that the second that you change like the lighting in a room, it has an entirely different feel.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, for one of the best examples I can think of is for like anyone who might have gone to see Sleep No More. There's the bar sequence that also like was a rave. And if you just wandered through where they weren't doing like the crazy orgy rave sequence, uh, it just was like a dimly lit bar, and there was not a lot going on. And then suddenly, like they turned on two or three lights, and you could see like details on the walls that you can't wouldn't have otherwise been able to see.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so that like immediately led into like how I've always really like gotten into what I do is that I like to be able to create an ambiance for what makes a welcoming or a terrifying room. Uh, as for like mentors along the way, I was like, I mean, I went to college for this. Like, I specifically went to college for lighting, so like I do have like my professors there that I have to thank for the most part, and then uh, it I have ended up doing I do theater mainly as a like my main passion, but like I'm split between like theater, corporate events, concerts, whatever else. And so like I like have this uh very very nice lady named Tracy who was a head electrician who was like, you are fairly kind of competent at this. Let me explain how this all goes, and like try to explain like the finer details of like working in New York City lighting, and the weird logistics that go with that because everything that we do gets shipped in through Jersey. So like you have
Mm-hmm.
to, like figure out like getting a crew out to Jersey to like make sure that you have all the gear that goes on the truck,
Mm-hmm.
have it all organized to then push it into the off the truck into the venue, and then like can you fit everything in the elevator is like a huge other bit. Or if you want to go for some nightmare venues, it's the how's that three flight climb up the stairs
Oh yeah.
uh to then dump all the gear and then like the show that I'm doing next week, there's literally no storage on site, so everything that we're taking has to get shipped in a case. We're going to take the case into the venue, dump everything out of the case, and the case back onto the truck to then go back away.
Mm.
And that's a thing that just happens in New York theater because there is not a lot of space. I mean, even when Broadway shows are loading in, if you like walk by, you'll see that there are a bunch of cases in what is normally the ticket lobby,
Yeah, yeah. I've seen that.
and that's just because that's the only place to put anything. I like there's a little bit more stage backstage, but like most of those buildings are sold that there aren't any elevators or anything, so there's no way to get anything off of that first floor unless you just kind of go, yep, we're all just putting four people around this and lifting it up a flight of
Yeah,
stairs,
yeah,
or you're roping things up.
yeah. People would be surprised how little space is backstage in some Broadway theaters because they didn't have all that technology then and all of those lights and all of that. Things changed and grew, and the theaters are still the same. So, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah, you find that to be true. Um, what was your first programming job?
My first, I mean, I did a little bit in college. The first one I
Hmm.
ever worked on in New York City, though, was a show called Stuffed, uh, which was off Broadway in, I was like, what venue was that? That was the West Side Theater downstairs,
Okay.
which is currently actually being, I believe, used as storage for Little Shop of Horrors. Uh, just because also their show upstairs is so loud that they can't have much of anything else in there. Uh, I only know that as hearsay, but that is why
Right,
there hasn't been anything else in that venue in like 6 years. Is just like they need the space, and also there's no way to like schedule timings.
right.
Um, but uh, Yeah, it's was a comedy show by Lisa Lampanelli,
Hmm.
who's a she's a stand-up comedian. She wrote her
Yeah,
own
no, I
show.
thought I recognized the name. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh she basically the entire shtick of the show was her relationship with food. Uh it was her and then basically like three backup people that were kind of like a mix of like people she interacted with or like kind of like recurring like voices in her head kind of vibes. It was a very okay show.
Okay.
But we had like four or five moving lights, a bunch of LED tape, and the biggest challenge that we actually had was because there's no way for how that show was set up to adjust a spotlight live because hiring a spot op is very expensive
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because you have to pay an extra person every show.
Yeah.
Uh, and also, there's no place to put one in that venue.
Okay.
There is upstairs where they have little shop, but there's absolutely no space downstairs. Uh, and Lisa's used to having a spot op who follows her around, or just a general stage wash.
Right.
Or I mean, this is also a decade ago. I have no idea what her career has been like since then. Uh, but uh, I mean, you get to be a comic of a certain level, and there's a spot op who follows you around as you walk everywhere on stage. And she just wasn't used to learning blocking, so it was very difficult to get her to get to cross or stand in a specific spot at a certain
Mm-hmm.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then like one of our three backup people were also trained in film, but hadn't really done stage shows, and really just I was having a hard time memorizing all their lines.
Ah, because no, there's no cut here.
Yeah,
There's no cut. You get
I
one
like
time.
you have to do the entire show over and over every time.
Yes. Every
Uh,
time. Every
but yeah,
time.
uh,
Um, so how is a lighting programmer different from a lighting designer? Is it that the lighting designer tells the lighting programmer what they want to see and it's your job to get it done? Is that the
yeah,
difference?
yeah. So basically, a lighting programmer is uh kind of is basically an intermediary between like getting the design executed and
Mm-hmm.
also we'll also do a decent amount with the head electrician to figure out a lot of like the show networks sort of stuff, which is what I was talking about, like talking to the sound console if you need to, also like making sure that all the computer networking, so like making sure that IP addresses all work together. There's a lot of give and take with that position because it can be your job, it could be the head electrician's job. And it also just for how you work with the lighting designer really just depends on your relationship with the designer.
Mm,
Uh, so I have had plenty of designers that I've worked with that I just get told exactly what button to hit
mm,
and just have to just do that, which I find a very frustrating way to work. Especially because I did go to school for design and I like can just listen to like what you are doing or like
right.
what you want and like can make it work. I was like, sometimes you're like, hey, use this channel. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they're just like, I don't know what to do. And I'm like, how about this, the guy, this guy, this guy? We do this. And
Right.
that's sometimes my job and sometimes it's not. And it's a very high stress position
Mm,
uh, because the lighting designers cannot create the show before they're in the venue.
yeah.
And so as the programmer, you then have to respond to what they want quickly enough that you're not holding up the entire room during tech uh, for more than what is an allowable amount of time.
Right.
Uh, and often the director depends again on the director, but sometimes the director will take this like, hey, this is like a framework. We're not actually hitting every single thing that we want to do.
Right.
We're going to come back and polish this. And some people want to see exactly what it's going to be right that second, but also then don't want to wait for the time that it takes to do that.
Right.
So a lot of like pre-production for the programmer is like often when we're like a couple of days before tech, we'll be in the venue standing, and just like anytime somebody flies in a piece of scenery or moves something into a spike, I take every light that I think I possibly could want for it and point it at it and cut all the shutters for that light and try to do this in about 5 minutes before that piece just wanders away and I never see it again until I actually need it.
Wow.
That way, when we're in tech with another 30 people on stage and in the house, would love to figure out what that noise is, but hey, that I'm ready and can just literally, hey, you need this one thing, I have this ready, and I don't always know what that piece of scenery correlates to.
Okay.
I try as hard as I can to get somebody to let me do a room or watch the room run.
Oh.
And I like a lot of people are like, no, we don't want to pay you for. Let me make sure that this is actually plugged in. Hold on 1 second. I like completely knocked that all over. So fun. Okay, that's I absolutely got this unplugged, and that is exactly what the noise was.
Okay.
I was like, I promise I almost know what I do professionally. It's only a little electricity.
You promise. You promise.
I was like, there's a lot of not fun facts. Like, it only takes 1 amp of electricity to kill you. It's not the volts that kills you, it's the average.
Wow. Well, that's good to know. That is good information to know. I should write that down.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Okay. But yeah, so I try to convince some like the production management team or directors or whomever to it's normally I try to get the designer to then get the production management team to let me sit and watch a one rehearsal. That way I kind of get a structure of what the show is like. I'll take some notes during that.
Right.
That way I actually, when they're like, oh yeah, so this thing that comes in that scene, and I'm like, what scene about what?
But it seems to me it would make sense to let you see at least a run of the show when the show's like in when the show is doing runs, to let you see what's happening. I would think that would save time. Yeah.
It is so much cheaper, and yet it is a weird thing that is hard for me to ask for sometimes. I don't have a good explanation as to why. That often they just don't want to, or like
they deem it not
sometimes
necessary.
It just like the timing just doesn't work out. I will like occasionally just like also ask for like a script or something like that. Just like at least so I can like see like where the locations are, or if the scenic designer has a breakdown of like scene by scene about where things generally think they're going to go.
Right.
So, and that's just what is incredibly helpful. I basically never have to know anything about where sound is if I'm working as the production or as the programmer.
Right.
As the head electrician, I absolutely need sound to finally tell me where their stuff is, so that we're not trying to hang a light where the sound system goes, and vice versa.
Absolutely.
It's always a really fun fight on for like Broadway is whether or not you're going to hang a light on center on that front of house truss, or if you're going to hang a speaker center. And sometimes like one will get hung above or below the other, but it's always a give and take.
That's crazy. So it feels like you're being a programmer, you also have a creative part to that as well. But what's the percentage of technical versus creative as far as being a programmer is concerned?
In my experience, it is kind of 70 to 75% technical, and like 25% like design. Uh, I don't get to make a lot of
Mhm.
artistic decisions, but
Yeah.
again, it also depends on who I'm working with. I have a friend of mine who does corporate events over at Jazz at Lincoln Center, and she and I have worked together plenty.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and she and I have actually been friends also separately for like the better part of my entire time here in New York. And as such, we just have a very good rapport. And I'm like, okay, what about this thing, that thing? But it's not my job to first come up with design ideas.
Okay.
It's one of those, if you're stalling or you like, I was like, hey, what about this? But it isn't like, I will absolutely get yelled at if I try to design over somebody
Uh-huh.
or not
Uh-huh.
get hired back.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I did have a show once that like I had the designer pull me aside and I was like, I need you to stop predicting what I'm going to do. And I like it
But were
was
you wrong?
I don't think so.
Okay.
But it was also like it was one of those, it was an earlier show that I was programming and it was completely anathema to how I normally had been told to work, which was to be predictive and like expect what you might need.
Mm-hmm.
And it just was not how they worked. And
Mm.
it just was not a good match of um of personality types.
Okay.
Uh, and I actually mostly stopped programming. I do it for a couple of friends here and there now, but like
Okay.
I went from that being my full-time job to uh just something I do on occasion with people I like because it's just incredibly stressful and I've just found it not to be a thing that I like to do that much.
Okay. So what if you pivoted to? You
Uh
don't do yeah, go ahead.
yeah, I accidentally stumbled into working on the Masquerade Immersive Phantom last year.
Mm-hmm.
I got a random text asking if I was available, and uh, then uh, to unload some trucks for some random thing. And I was like, my boyfriend, Gavin, was like, "Where's this thing that you're doing?" And I was like, "I don't know, somewhere near Columbus Circle." And he's like, "Is it at 218 West 57th Street?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why the hell do you know that?"
Wow. How did he know that?
Because they had just released the zoning like documentation to the city,
Okay.
and it was just kind of passing around the internet that like, oh my god, this is like what they're planning to do for the immersive phantom.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
was like, and so I was like, got a text from somebody I had done like 1 or 2 days with a year before and had never really worked with since.
Okay.
And suddenly I went from being the just a random electrician unloading a truck to after several promotions, I was their overnight crew chief.
Okay.
Uh,
So
so,
I
so that
remember
was
when you booked that
mhm.
and the craziness that was going on. So what does an overnight crew chief have to do?
So basically, I was working as not the head electrician exactly, but I was uh, I would say my title at that point was really more like an assistant associate electrician. So
Okay.
I was in charge of a large group of electricians, and then I was working overnights. So we were doing 11 p.m. to 1 p.m. And yes, that is a lot of hours.
Yes, that
And
is.
and that was 7 days a week for a month. But I had a group of people and we were just working on getting all of the set electrics. So think
Hmm.
like candelabras, sconces, whatever else that like might need to get plugged in that is actually has to get physically wired.
Right.
So what we would call practical.
Right.
Um, because that show is mostly practicals and not conventional or traditional theatrical lights.
Okay.
Uh, and it just is constantly a, give and take for that job on Okay, well, we're moving all of these things we set up yesterday because we were actively teching and rehearsing the show during the day. We would get a bunch of notes and then try to make those work then over the night and like try to keep updating things for audience safety, for where things have moved for whatever updates we needed for acting or whatever or hey, we didn't quite finish this note, but we're moving on to this one because we're actually rehearsing in this room actually the next day. And it was an exciting adventure of just constantly trying to keep up.
Yeah. Okay. Because it was a lot of stories. It was a lot of stories about what was happening with Masquerade and was it ever going to make it and was it ever going to, be done. And now I hear that it's an amazing experience to go through. Um,
I
what's
mean,
the most? Go ahead, baby.
one of the most glowing reviews I've heard about it was actually my boyfriend going, "Wow, I really wanted to hate this," because he did watch me load it in for 9 months, and he's like, "God,
Because you
this
had
is."
to work so hard on it. He was, I really want to hate this. Yeah.
Yeah, well, yeah, yeah. I worked so hard. I like was not a person for a period, and also we just never saw each other. He's like,
Right.
"Damn, this is incredible," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know. We worked hard."
You worked very hard on it. Right. Um, what's the most technically demanding show you've programmed?
That is an excellent. Oh, actually, I absolutely have an answer for that. I ended up working on a show called The Connector,
Mm,
which is Jason Robert Brown's newest show, which is over at MCC on 52nd, 51st, somewhere around there,
mm-hmm.
and 10th. And it was just very technically difficult because I was taking care of the lighting system that I could do fine, no problem. But also, we had all of this pixel LED tape, so every single LED could be individually mapped. So I was running a separate piece of software through the lighting console and manipulating that. And then that was then fed onto a 40-foot wide by 20-foot deep deck, which was not like it was not completely every like little bit was
Mm-hmm.
LED tape, but like it was a bunch of squares that were I want to say they were 2 feet by 2 foot squares. So the outline of each square was this pixel LED tape, and I had to figure out how to get that system to listen to the lighting console so that could get triggered through the console every night so that like there weren't a bunch of different systems that had to work all at once. Yeah, it was only 1,200 pixels or something like
Oh,
that. The show looked great. They were just we were using all of these like squares to basically like make hallways and rooms on the floor, and it looked really great.
okay.
It is also one of my favorite shows I've ever worked on.
Oh, good, good. At least with all the work, it was one of your favorite shows.
Oh, yeah.
Um, what's your shows sometimes don't always go well. So what's the show that you're like, how did I survive doing this show?
Uh, it might also be The Connector or Masquerade or uh we did I also did the world premiere for the Mr. Holland's Opus musical
Okay.
over which was up at the Algonquin Playhouse,
Mm-hmm.
and that is a space that is not used to producing new shows.
Mm,
So the producer ended up paying for an extra week of tech because they usually tech in 2 days for their shows and then
right.
like do a couple days of previews and then they're open. So we
Right.
did 7 days of tech, and I think our first show run came in almost at 4 hours.
Is it supposed to be that long?
There's just a lot of different pieces that like came into
Mhm.
it, and so it was uh, also was actually my first time working with a bunch of pixel LED tape. I wasn't using a separate piece of software to do that. I was doing it all internally in the lighting console. But that was also like a learning experience doing that. And also there is just a lot of show happening and just not a
Right.
lot of time to get it to happen.
Wow.
Uh,
That's a okay.
yeah,
That's a long show. I didn't realize it was that long.
we got it under 3 hours.
Okay.
But
Okay.
the first one was almost 4. We cut a lot of pages.
Okay. Okay.
Uh, and like one of my a friend of a friend like was one of the characters who just basically got completely cut out of the show. uh,
No. Well, that's
I,
terrible.
I it happens.
Wow. Well, that's
I like
terrible.
sometimes like your character is not necessary for the show if you're trying to
Trim the
trim it
show
down.
down. Yeah.
And like he was a side character.
Mm. Well, that's unfortunate. Um, has technology changed what you do dramatically? Are there new and exciting enhancements that have changed or made things easier, or things that new things you have to learn how to do?
Um, well, the lighting industry for like what technology we use has changed over about every 10 years for the last like 25 years.
Okay.
Uh, so like when I was in high school, we basically were just using incandescent lights. So I mean, think of your like conventional light bulb that like you used to be able to like just do a dimmer on your wall and just take that up and down. It would glow
Hmm.
a little bit to very high. Um, and that's what it was for a long time, where we would then put like gels to color the light in front of it. And then we started getting LED lights that were okay. And then also would also work with moving lights, which moving lights started in the 1980s, which were literally just incandescent lights on like little rotating arms.
Uh,
Uh, and those eventually changed to being basically much more refined little robots. And those started using, instead of incandescent lights, what we call an arc lamp. So
right.
basically, two little rods very close to each other, and you just shoot a little electricity between the rods,
Mm-hmm.
and then it arcs between those, and that's what makes them so bright. Is that you
Ah,
are literally just bridging the gap between two pieces of metal, and it's just an exposed current. Um, we don't really use those anymore because everything is LED now.
right.
But that provides its own problems because cameras don't like necessarily the refresh rates, so how many times LEDs turn on and off, and you have to change those settings between like your TV cameras and your light. So some cheaper gear doesn't really have the option to do that, and that's an issue. But even
Mm-hmm.
the cheaper gear is getting better.
Mm-hmm.
I also I miss gels and incandescents. I miss having a blue that isn't really red. Um, and I know that sounds really like a little pedantically silly, but like the standard lighting fixture that we use for like Sykes and things like that is
Mm-hmm.
now really, really red for its blue. And it's just blue LEDs are really hard to make. There's actually the last color of LED that we managed to figure out how to do.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Uh, but on top of that, you now have to do a lot of computer networking to talk between all the different pieces of technology, because half the time, like if you're doing a little off Broadway show, the stage manager will be the person taking the lighting cues,
Okay.
and that's also then running the sound consoles, sound effects, and also probably the video effects that are now kind of all standard. Like
Okay.
it's a lot.
You know, I think that people would be surprised how many cues it takes to move from one scene to another. So,
Mhm.
how does that, like, is it called queue stacking when you
Yeah, it's a
um
Q stack
you-
is
yeah.
yeah. The Q stack is just like uh uh I'm almost I'm it's just basically like a list of all of the different saved lighting looks.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I can have one light on here and that can be Q1, and then I can have both a second light on and that's Q2. And then I was like, okay, I actually just want to go back to the first look, but I'm not going to go back to Q1. I go back to Q3. And then actually I want this to then swing out into the audience, and that can be Q4, but also sometimes you might want it to then, as it goes up, if it's a moving light, then also get bigger. But I want to delay that, and that can be a different part of the same queue. And it's just, there's a lot of different little bits of information, and that you have to save in a bunch of different places. I mean, this is what I will say for like a lighting programmer job is really uh, intense data management, for knowing where and what everything's doing at every point, and keeping track that like, hey, I need this light available in 5 queues. So like, then do I slowly sneak this one light out over 5 minutes, and how does that screw up the composition of the scene?
Right. Right.
Uh, this gets really complicated though, like for what I've been talking back to, when I was doing stuffed,
Mm-hmm.
not having a follow spot makes that really hard, because you have to then make an individual cue for every time an actor moves.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
and it like oppose that to like Lost Boys, where they which just opened, or yeah, just opened. They have 2 or 3 follow spots in the front. And they actually now have robotic ones that they have a front and a back spot that follow the same information.
Wow.
They have a camera on the front lot one, and they can make that sync up with one on the back and check where it actually hits on the stage.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's really cool. Uh, I like, you can technically have like one effect where like it's 20 lights that all point at the one thing, and you have basically just, it's a fancy joystick that like allows them to follow around a person.
Yeah. That. Yeah. Yeah.
But as somebody is manipulating the pan and tilt and making that all point at one place, the lighting console as it advances can actually change the color or the size by itself. And that's a really cool trick that is now possible, but it wasn't, 10 years ago.
Yeah. Um. Have you ever had to fix something in the midst of a show? Like something went, I lost something, a fuse blew. I don't know the terms, but have you ever had something crazy happen to the lights during the show?
How about the one time I accidentally kicked off the power supply for the entire lighting console?
Well, that. Mm-hmm.
Hmm. So I had to like reboot the console. And what I didn't know at the time is that the second the console turned on, it was going to take out all the lights because we weren't sitting in a queue. Uh, and so the spot ops ended up actually turning on their lights and uh, making that all just take it, like turn everything on until we were done. It is one of the more humiliating times I've ever had for a job. Yeah, I mean, sometimes things just go wrong, and like half the time you'll end up just resetting that light from the lighting console if it's a
Yeah.
moving light.
Right.
Uh, and if it doesn't reset, you'll do what's called parking it out. So you just make sure it just never turns on.
Right. Right.
Um, but like I've also like I basically like, it's very hard to necessarily go to a show and it's like that you look at it and I'm like, wow, something's going really poorly with the lighting rig. But I actually
Right.
recently went to Spelling Bee off Broadway,
Mm-hmm.
and there was an entire electric that was just all the lights were pointing up in the grid and flashing. And I'm like, somebody done fucked up somewhere, and I don't know where. And it was really like upsetting to me because I was like, this just, it doesn't even look a little wrong. It looks really, really wrong.
So
And
that even the audience could notice that it was wrong?
I mean, yeah, where like my boyfriend noticed something was wrong, where I
Mm,
noticed something was wrong. And
right,
I was like, can we just turn off all of these lights? I realize I'm going to be missing like specials and things, but like this is
right.
so distracting.
um, what show are you most proud of that you worked on?
Uh, I don't think I have a good answer for that one.
Okay, that's fair.
That there's a certain amount where I just the like a job is a job, and like I don't often get to pick what I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
I often don't even know what the show is that I'm working on until after I get hired. So like I am proud of several of my shows, but like I don't have anything where like, yeah, like I'm so glad I worked on this thing because
Um,
like
right,
I I don't have a lot of decision making power for like what I end up getting
right,
hired on.
right,
So
right. Um, you work crazy hours. How do you sustain that? I often ask people who do theater because we all work long hours sometimes, and how do you take care of yourself? Or if you don't take care of yourself, you just do it till you wear yourself down. But do you have something that you do to like fill yourself back up besides sleep, to help you get through long days?
um I mean I am very bad about actually taking off the time I need. I've gotten better at it, but I also like have just started Masquerade has started doing like nightlife stuff. So I have now been working mostly over actually at MS Now, what used to be MSNBC.
Mm-hmm.
And then have sometimes finished jobs there, gone to Masquerade for their nightlife stuff, and then gone back to MSNBC. And those are all 8-hour shifts. Um, so kind of how I make joy with that is that I actually make sure to like have some dates with my boyfriend. I also sometimes just collapse and sleep for like 12 hours. Uh, I am also like wildly one of the only people I know in the industry that actually goes to see shows, and like that brings me a lot of joy.
Okay.
Um, I do not understand the people who like work on Broadway and never see anything. I
Mm,
understand like for the stage hands who like are running the shows,
right.
but like a lot of them, it was they got into the industry because their dad was in the industry, and that their dad got them their job, and their dad's dad got their
Right.
dad their job, and like it's just a family business. It's not
Right.
a passion, it's a job. And I'm like, I
Right.
don't understand that. I moved here with the like express like want of making this all happen.
And being in and seeing shows and being involved in the community
Mhm.
of the thing, right?
Yeah.
So what note does someone give you that means you're about to stay for another 3 hours? What do they tell you? It's like, we need you to blah 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 blah. You're like, oh my God, that means I have to rewire everything. Like what note? What note
Uh,
do they
I
give
don't
you?
normally get those notes because I
Okay.
already know that they're happening. Because often I'm the one going, "Hi, in case you want this for tomorrow." So it's often not that I get the note. It's like because I'm high enough up the food chain that I'm like, so it's up to you. I either get paid overtime for the next several hours to get this done, and so you guys can have it, or I'm going home and sleeping, and I'll fix it tomorrow as best I can.
Right. Right.
And it's like a huge give and take between like the producers, the general management, production management, and just the designers. And at that point, I was like, I often just go, "Hi guys, here's what I think we need to do this.
Right. Y'all
Y'all decide between yourselves what's actually happening."
talk amongst yourselves
Yeah.
and let me know what that is. What's more stressful, Tech Week previews or opening nights?
Well, I have no stress for opening nights because I'm normally not on the show at that point.
Also, the lighting programmer is not there for opening night, like when the previews and everything is done, or tech is done, you're done?
We're programmers are done at freeze. The head
Okay.
electrician is usually basically also done at freeze, but it can get called in for like changes. But that's normally, but at that point, all of those responsibilities are generally handed off to the show crew.
Okay.
Because the programmer can't like shouldn't be making any more changes after freeze. Uh, Previews is always very stressful just due to the fact that I can only come in for a 4 hour call and have to get a lot done, and
Mm,
then have to set up, clean up, or set up, do my job, clean up, and then also everyone else comes in. And it's really, you only get like 2.5 to 3 hours of actual productive work done.
yeah.
The head electrician will do everything before the lighting or the lighting designer and the programmer normally come in, and there's usually a little bit of crossover.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, and then the programmer, sorry,
No, that's okay.
the programmer will normally be there from a little bit before the
Mm-hmm.
preview rehearsal itself, and uh, then the lighting console then will get put back away for previews so that the uh, actual chairs are available for the preview.
Okay. So
Uh,
freeze means, I know what freeze means, but freeze means, for those who are listening, is where the show is frozen. No more changes are supposed to happen.
supposed to.
That's a lie. But that's what freeze means.
Yeah. Acting notes might and probably still happen, but for
Yes.
tech, like
Yes.
nobody wants you to have to come back in, and it
No.
also allows the actors to actually get used to this is actually what the show looks like. Gives the
Right.
stage manager actual ability to call the show consistently.
Right.
They might still get they might, but probably won't get as many notes about calling cues and where they go, because
Right.
that's supposed to have been mostly figured out by freeze.
Absolutely.
Uh, yeah, I was like, it's all just differently stressful. My problem also normally for previews is as a programmer, I'm usually only in for a 4 hour call, so it's hard for me to actually make my rent off of those calls off that week.
Right. Right.
Um, and I don't, it, I yeah, as like tech week is always stressful, but like, oh, I'm awake. I promise. I was like, I'm not about to just go sit through a 2.5 hour opera. I'll totally keep up through it. Um,
But
uh,
okay, so what would you tell young people who want to do this um for a living? What's the path they should take? Find lighting programs in colleges. Um, is that the best route to take?
uh, I mean, if you're trying to do this in New York, a lot of it is just off of your reputation and who you meet. I specifically had to update my resume for this interview, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't know the last time I really have had been asked for it, except for a couple of perfunctory, like because I recently started working doing TV broadcast lighting
Mm-hmm.
for news, and like they needed a resume, and I was like, well, I guess I have to update this for that, but
Yeah.
like it is very rare for me to ever get asked for it. uh I would I would honestly say my best advice is to ask questions and be interested in what you're doing around you.
Mm-hmm.
um if you want to go to college and get like an understanding of how things go, it is also a good way to start to build a network.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Uh, but also, like where I went to college, no, I am one of less than 5 people I can think of for like the years spanning where around me
Yeah.
that are in New York doing lighting.
Okay.
Like so for people listening, I went to the University of Cincinnati. They have
Right.
a theater conservatory program and like is one of like the preeminent like theatrical programs in the country. That being said, very few of my theatrical design classmates actually still work in theatrical design. And if they do, most of them are not in New York. They're in other places and are
Okay.
doing very well for themselves. It just was not what I wanted to do.
Right.
As like most of the people who are working out of that program are actually the actors and musical theater actors.
Right.
Uh, so yeah, I just kind of reach out and see who you can like heckle into working.
Yeah.
Ask good questions. If you want to do like lighting programming, ETC is the standard for lighting programming for theater,
Mm-hmm.
which is the electronic theatrical controls. Uh, they also like make a bunch of lighting equipment, but all of their courses about how to use the console are up online. They
Okay.
also have a bunch of other like classes on like lighting networking and things like that. And it is they have a vibrant like user forum and things like that. That like it's a not terrible way to learn and like do learn at least the basics. A
Right.
lot of this is trial by fire.
Absolutely.
As like you don't know what you don't know until you don't know it.
Mm.
But I also would just do not claim you know how to do something you don't know how to do.
Oh yeah.
Uh, that will absolutely just burn your career where nobody ever wants to hire you again
To
because
the
you,
ground.
yeah, like because you just
To
do,
the ground.
yeah. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I will constantly tell people is like, I think I can figure this out, but I do not promise I can make this work.
Right. Right.
And that has proved very generally useful.
Right. Right.
So,
Um, I like to do this. We're at the point in the podcast where I like to do what I call stage left quickies, and I ask rapid fire questions. So,
well, that's good because I do have to go before too much sooner.
yes, I got you. Dark stage or bright stage?
Oh, I mean, I like my bedroom at like 5 foot candles, so like I'm a dark stage girly. That being said, it is entirely the atmosphere of the show.
Right.
Uh, I is like there are show. Uh, yeah, yeah. To keep this quick, yeah, that is entirely just. It depends on the show, but I think it's much more eye catching to have something dark and then be able to pop something up there.
Okay.
It is harder to draw your eye to something that's already bright.
Right. Favorite lighting console?
Depends on what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I like Hog and MA for concerts and uh like live busking events. So that is busking being improv lighting. ETC consoles are all my favorite for theater. I'm also the weirdo who however can actually busk off of those consoles, but it takes a lot more setup.
Okay.
And that's just because I it's what I know better, and there's some tricks I can just pull off because I just have spent more hours behind them.
Okay. Um, 1 Q or 500 Qs?
I, again, depends on what you're doing.
Okay.
I was like, if you're doing like a like I if you're doing an opera, I'm gonna say you probably want like 40 cues, depending again, depends on the opera. But like one spotlight and then like 15-minute fades between cues. But
Mm.
if you're doing like a musical, boy, are you gonna have more cues than you possibly want. I
Yeah.
was, I was like, I think Legally Blonde has 10 scenic changes in the first 12 minutes.
Wow.
And like and then you've got the weird inverse where like Six the musical, I there is technically one scenic change and where like there's a chair that comes out of the ground
Right.
and back up. I think they have 1,400 lighting cues.
Wow.
But there's only 16 that are called I believe by the stage manager. The rest of them are all off of time code, so click tracks and things.
Okay.
So
Okay.
like a lot of those are like they do a begin of the number, an end of the number, but like there are so many individual lighting looks for that show.
Oh wow. I would have no idea. I just stand on 6 and they light me. I have no idea.
Yeah.
One word for Tech Week.
Sleep, please. Sorry, one word. Sleep.
Thank you so much, Diamond, for doing my podcast today. I appreciate you taking the time to come and chat with me.
Absolutely.
I've learned a lot of things. I've learned a lot of things about lighting programmers, and I have folks. I want to have folks like you come on so that people can respect what happens behind the stage, and not just want to talk to the people who do the stuff on the stage. So, yeah.
I mean, this is always the thing that I found challenging with doing any like trivia for theater. I was like, I don't know any of the actors' names. I was like, I can tell you like maybe who wrote it and the theater it was in, but like, don't ask me to like tell you what was the 7th alphabet.
That's fair, because I don't know that either. But thank you, sweetie, and I know I'll probably see you soon.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, probably. And yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, baby.
I'll catch you later.
All right, bye-bye.